Hi, everybody. Happy Friday. We made it through another week. Oh gosh, look at my hair. We have made it through another week of this crazy time of life. And hi, McCain. And here we are. I'm hoping that some of you join. We have a really awesome show lined up for today. I'm pretending. I have a show. Oh, hey, peeps. At 11, I have Gretchen Rubin coming on. Then at 11:15, Brian Platzer will be here to talk about the body politic. At 11:25, Rachel Beanland is going to talk about Florence Adler Swims Forever. And at 11:35, Courtney Mom is going to come on. She's written a bunch of books. Touch, One More Hug, and I'm sorry, Courtney Mom wrote Touch, and she's also written Before and After the Book Deal and Costa Alegre, and I thought Touch was a perfect book just for now. 11:45, Allison Pataki is coming on. Her book, Nellie Takes New York, is amazing, a great picture book, and she's going to give us a little snippet from her upcoming book about Poppy, which is another character in the book. So all these authors are really excited to talk to, and all different types of authors. Gretchen Rubin is a 5-time best-selling author for Happier at Home, Inner Order, Outer Calm. I think I got that right. Inner Order, Outer Calm. The Happiness Project, The 4 Tendencies. And she always has amazing tips and really specific things that can help everybody. So I'm really looking forward to hearing her advice. I could use some myself. And then Brian Platzer, this is his second book, The Body Politic, and Brian suffers from this debilitating dizziness issue with his brain, and he'll be talking about how he integrated that into his novel. Rachel Beanland, her book opens with a really sad scene of a drowning and how a family goes to cover up what happens in the 1930s in Atlantic City. And again, Courtney Mom is going to be calling in from somewhere very far away. I can't remember where, but I don't know. I'll ask her, and talk about a society that it doesn't involve touch, and how you really cope with that, which is sort of what we're doing today, since we're all so isolated. And then again, Allison Pataki, who has written a children's book series, but also many other books, including The Emperor's Daughter, and a beautiful memoir called Beauty in the Broken Places. So let's get going. You don't want to hear from me. So let's get Gretchen on. If she's here yet, let's see. Or maybe not. Okay, well, we'll wait 2 more minutes. I did tell her 11:05, and she's very prompt. If anybody has any comments or questions, add them now. I can read them off, and we can see what you guys would like to hear. I know I have some questions for all of these amazing authors. And hi, Brian, who just joined. I'm really excited to talk to you in a few minutes. What am I reading today? Well, today I've read these 2 books. No, I'm kidding, but I did review these 2 books, both of which were really good and honestly different than I expected. I mean, sometimes, I don't know if you guys feel this, I feel like when you look at the cover, it's not necessarily what's inside, even the description. So The Body Politic is sort of billed as a story about 4 friends and their intersecting lives. Yes, I will be doing this next week. But it's really about sort of the inner struggle of a man coping with a debilitating condition that he doesn't know what to do about, and the loneliness and isolation that comes from that. And I found that super interesting and moving, and the effect on his child and being a dad and the effect on his marriage. It was really interesting and a unique point of view that I hadn't read before. And I know it's fiction, but it was based on him. So I thought that was really interesting, and not, I don't know, sometimes, I mean, not that people don't write great book jackets, but I don't know, if I were writing the book jacket, I might have highlighted that element of the story a little more. And Florence Adler Swims Forever also has a large Jewish component to it that I didn't realize at first, which I loved. And the rituals that a family has to go through when they go through a really hard, painful loss. And it's a lot about, and it's about, how to deal with a really tricky pregnancy and how the community surrounds you when you're going through that. So this actually isn't coming out until July. I don't know how. I'm so lucky I got a really early copy of it, and I'm talking to Rachel Early, who, by the way, joined my book club last week, so it was really fun hearing from her. So yeah, those are the 2 books I'm reading. And I'm doing 3 podcasts after this Instagram Live today, and I'm going to be interviewing Julie Clark, who wrote The Last Flight, about two women's lives that intersect, and they trade identities, and then there's a plane crash, and anyway, that was good. And Pretty Things by Janelle Brown. I'm interviewing Janelle Brown today about that, which is about like Instagram influencers, and it's actually a really frightening look as to how much if you want to like commit crime, how much you can learn from people's Instagram feeds. So made me a little bit nervous. And then I'm also going to be interviewing Julie Buxbaum about her book Admission later on my podcast today, which I'll release these episodes later. Here's Gretchen to save me. Anyway, so she wrote a book called Admission, which is really good. And now we can talk to Gretchen, and you can, stop listening to me ramble about all the different books in my life at this exact time. But I'm interested to know what you guys are reading, so post in the comments. Hey, Gretchen.
Hey, Bibby, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm hanging in there.
Are you in New York, or where are you these days?
Yeah, I'm on the Upper East Side of New York City, hunkered down, safe at home.
It sounds like it's like a wasteland, like all the press and everything. Is it that bad being there?
You know, it does sound terrifying, but, you know, here, if you're safely at home or like you're walking around the park 6 feet away from everybody, it feels very calm. You know, the buses are running, the subways are running. Most people are being really, really conscientious. So I think it's just we're a really big place, so our numbers are really, really high.
Yeah.
But just everyday life, it doesn't feel terrifying at all.
So you are like the master of giving tips for everything. Like your newsletters have such great, every time I see like a post with your 9 things about this or something in your newsletter, something in it always is like, okay, yes, that I'm going to do. I can try that. So how are you what are your tips for getting through now? Like all of us are at home. You've written the book Happier at Home. You should be the expert on this.
Well, yeah. Well, you know, doctors, what is it? Cobbler's children go unshod or whatever. But there are a few things. I mean, one of them is to connect with other people. And like, this is a great example of a way that we can use technology to connect with people in ways that maybe we never envisioned before. And so since our usual social habits are disrupted and our work habits and all the way that we normally engage with people, we need to replace that. Exercise, it's super important to exercise. And then just with home, I mean, I wrote a little book about it because it's surprising to me how often people will sort of express the idea that outer order contributes to inner calm more than it should. And I have talked to so many people, and I've certainly done this myself, where part of, I think, our desire to prepare or to be ready, there's really nothing to do. You're supposed to stay at home. You're safe at home. So where does that energy go? I think a lot of people are cleaning out files. They're cleaning out extra rooms. They're like, oh, I had these files from a job that I quit 2 years ago and I've never gone through them. I'm doing virtual training, and he was like, oh my gosh, we need one of those containers that they come and put in front of your house. We're just like getting rid of so much stuff. So as silly as it sounds to say something like making your bed or cleaning off your office desktop, or, you know, organizing your bookshelves or whatever it might be, obviously it's irrational, but it is something that many, many people are saying, you know, I feel like if I'm more in control of my space, I feel I'm more in control of my life. It's not true, but it feels true. It feels good.
I just literally posted about this yesterday, a picture of me mopping, because I feel like I've become like fanatical about the kitchen being really clean, and in the dishwasher, out of the dishwasher, floors, surfaces, like everything has to be just so. And
one of the things is that it's easier to clean when things are cleared off. When you're not moving piles around, when there aren't like a million different like appliances on a kitchen counter, when there's just like not a bunch of junk on top of a counter or a desk or a table. Especially now that we're using our space in a different way. Like maybe, you know, one spouse is working from home, the other spouse is working from home, the kids are doing their schoolwork from home. You might need to like reorganize your space, and that might make it easier to keep it clean as well.
So you've like written the book on having a clean, orderly space. Do you have anything left to tinker with during, like, now that like you must have it perfect?
Oh, no, 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 because it's like, you know, it's just the tide washes in stuff all the time. So there's constantly things to work on. I mean, just my office, but I was like, I need to take 10 minutes and I have all these things that are just like, oh, I just need to do this one little thing and I just need to follow up on this one. And I leave it out as a reminder. I'm like, I just need to take a half an hour. One of the things I talk about in Outer Order, Inner Calm, and I think also in the book Happier at Home, is Power Hour, which is where you make a list of all the kind of the things that can be done at any time, so they're done at no time. Make a list, and then once a week, just power through Power Hour. And do, like, I need to scan a bunch of documents and email them to somebody. I mean, it's not hard, but it's a nuisance, and I've been postponing it for a week, and it's just clutter. Just do it already, and then it's disproportionate, like the cheer that you get from it. And the funny thing about stuff like this is sometimes people are like, well, but it's so superficial to think about something like this when there's this world catastrophe happening. But in fact, when we take the time to like calm ourselves, energize ourselves, we help the people around us, and we also strengthen ourselves for whatever is going to come next. This is a long game right now. We all know it. And we got to keep ourselves going. And so I think by doing things like distracting yourself with a wonderful book, you know, giving yourself a respite, that's a way to help you maintain yourself over the long run.
I like it. Good advice. Now I just have to like get it to seep in and follow through. You know, like,
no,
I feel like the one thing I keep
all good advice.
The back of my head is like all the photo albums I really need to do of the kids.
So many people are talking about photos because they're so oppressive. What's worse, digital? I would love to know what viewers say. What do you feel more oppressed by, your digital photos or your physical photos? I feel like people like they've sort of spiraled out of control. Now could be a great time.
It's true. It's just a matter of sitting down. I think I'm going to do maybe like photo hour or something. Maybe I'll or once a week even.
Tackling it a half an hour at a time or something like that can really, we often overestimate what we can do in like an afternoon, but then we underestimate what we could do if we did a half an hour for a week or a month. We can get a lot done if we're just consistent over the long term.
And I feel like not feeling like you have to accomplish it all, right? Like I haven't done a photo album now since, I don't know, maybe like November.
Yeah.
But I'm like, if I could just do November, right? Then maybe it'll be easier to do December and,
absolutely,
you know, versus like I have to do 6. Yeah.
Well, what's that old saying, you know, don't get it perfect, get it started. Just, you know, slap something together. But it's funny. So I have the Happier podcast and my co-host is my sister. And she's just super messy. She's just she's clutter blind. She doesn't even see clutter. And even for her, she was saying, you know what? For the first time in my life, practically, I felt the urge to clean my office. So I think even the people who usually don't care are sort of starting to feel it now.
And you said that exercise is a really important way to get through this. How are you exercising?
Well, I go for a long walk in the park, and I'm being very careful to make sure that I'm following all the best practices about social distancing. But everybody says as long as you're apart from everybody else and you don't touch anything, it's fine. I do a virtual workout to do strength training. And so that's what I've been doing. But I know people are doing like yoga videos on YouTube and, you know, all Peloton if they have one and, you know, biking around. And yeah, how about you? What are you doing?
I have been feeling this renewed urge to run. I've been running a lot more than usual, at least a couple times a week. And I've been doing workout videos with my kids. I have this little deal with Obey Fitness now where you get a month free with code books. So the kids and I do Kids Bop videos. So they have like cardio dance with Kids Bop and sculpt with Kids Bop. So we all like listen to fun music and do squats, and they think it's really funny to watch me try to work out.
That's a great idea. Yeah, I think a lot of people are trying to get their kids to get exercise. Again, it's just our usual routines are totally disrupted. So everything has to be replaced or reimagined. It's not that it's so hard, but it's like everything has to be thought through. All the things that we took for granted now need to be kind of put back into place. But it can be fun. That's a great idea to do with your kids. My kids would relentlessly make fun of me. Maybe they would enjoy that.
My little kids, my big kids forget it. No. Um, well, knowing that this period of time is sort of unpredictable, which is one of the things that really gets me the most, is like, how long am I doing this for? Like, and trying to extract from the news every day. Like, okay, is it a month, 2 months, 3 months? Am I, is this going on all summer? How do you like emotionally and tactically prepare for the unknown of what's coming, and just like the time limit of it, time limitlessness of it, I should say?
Well, I have exactly the same experience. I'd be curious, like, if viewers, like, give us a thumbs up if you feel like this. Like, I feel like I usually have a very precise sense of time. Like, any time of the day, if you say, what time is it? I would know. What day of the week is it? I would know. And now it's like, I have to constantly, like, look, what day of the week is it? What time is it? I'll be wildly wrong, like off by 90 minutes, which is really unusual for me. I'm curious if other people are having this kind of, like, time feels sort of boundless. And like you said, we don't have a deadline. So it's not like we're aiming for a deadline and we can count down the days and we can check it off, on the refrigerator door. We don't really know yet exactly how long this is going to be. So I'm really just trying to take it day by day, and I'm keeping a journal, just sort of so I can remember what every day is like. Because I think even like, think about how different a week was from today. A week in the future is going to feel very different. So keeping a journal and trying to just say, like, well, what do I want to get done, and what do we want to get done as a family? Like my husband, this is very unlike him. He proposed that we would do family meditation. So every day we do that. And I'm like, if we do that, that's good. That's a good day. And we need to get that done. One of my daughters is still on spring break, but my college daughter is back, and she's like, has to be in like an hour and 45-minute seminar. So that's also helping us structure our days a little bit. And I think it's also nice when the weekend feels different from the weekday. School helps with that. But also, like, can we do things on the weekend that make it feel fun or make it feel different? Somebody was saying, like, just like, trying to find ways to introduce novelty.
Kyle, my husband Kyle, said he saw something posted today that said TGI, oh, forget it. Because it's like, it doesn't matter that it's Friday. Like, what's the difference? So.
Yeah, I know. That's the thing. And if you have kids, if school kids and then people who are working from home, then it does give you sort of an automatic thing. But like someone like me who's a writer, if it weren't for other people, basically my days would be pretty much the same. It's funny. I think some people like me really find refuge and reassurance and comfort in scheduling. So if anything, I would like schedule out every hour because that makes me feel in control and productive. But then I realized that other people in my family, want it to be much looser, or they want to be more spontaneous. And so I'm also trying to, in my household, not march around with a clipboard all the time, just because that's what makes me feel better.
That's really good advice. Yeah. Gretchen, thank you so much for coming on. And also, Gretchen, so we're launching this new essay site on my website very soon, and yours is going to be one of the first essays. So I will keep you posted, and I'm so excited you wrote for it. And yay! So
it's
stay
so
tuned.
fun to talk to everyone. Thanks so much. Have a great.
Thanks for coming on.
Weekend.
You too. You too. Bye. That was fantastic advice. I feel like now I'm going to try to find a way to make the weekend feel different. Okay, let's talk to Brian Platzer, whose book, thank you again, Gretchen, for coming on. Brian Platzer, The Body Politic, which is a novel. Hi, Brian.
Hey.
How are you?
I am doing the best I can.
That's a great answer. And where are you? Are you in Brooklyn?
I am in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, central Brooklyn. Yeah.
And how is it there? Quiet?
It's quiet and lovely and full of a latent dread. It's a funny period of time we're all in, because it's my wife working from home and me. I'm about to start teaching again next week, and I've got a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old, and it's sort of chaos and wacky and fine. And then every day, my wife and I look at each other saying, like, I love you. I hope life continues as we want it to continue. So it's that mismatch between the wackiness of having 2 little kids at home and needing to constantly entertain them, and the existential horror of the news and Twitter and everything else out there. It makes for a surreal time.
I am so with you. I have a 5 and 6-year-old and also 2 almost 13-year-olds. And I try not to, look at the newspaper and say like, oh my God, look what's going on, because then it'll freak them out. So I try to be mindful of like when my emotions show and like when I can vent about it and how to make the world seem safe to them. But it's not.
Yeah. I mean, but it sort of is, or at least we pretend it is within these walls, which is the fascinating part, where in order to talk to kids about this, we have needed to give them enough information so they're not scared and they don't feel like we're keeping something from them, but not too much to, produce the opposite effect. So we're all trying to figure it out.
Brian, tell me, I've read all your articles, the New York Times and everything about your dizziness, your brain condition, PPPD, and all the other diagnoses you've had. Can you tell everybody a little about what happened with your fall in the, apple picking place and your resulting neurological issues, and then how it became this beautiful book, which is amazing.
Thank you so much for reading the book and for saying that and for reading the articles as well. It happened to me for reasons that doctors don't really understand. So I woke up one day and I was incapacitatedly dizzy. I couldn't, it felt as though I had drunk like 30 beers that morning. And then as the day went on, it got progressively more drunk and discombobulated. And I lost vision on my left eye. I felt like I was always going to fall down. I couldn't quite think straight. I had a general brain fog that really was debilitating, and which lasted nearly 3 years. And I'm on medication now that mitigates some of the symptoms, but for those 3 years, I couldn't teach, I couldn't write, I couldn't be alone with my kids, I couldn't have a conversation on the phone or with my wife. And I saw every specialist, Western medicine and holistic one could imagine to try to get to the bottom of this. So when I did emerge with this diagnosis, PPPD, and with a set of medications that would help mitigate the symptoms, I wanted to think through what it was all like. And I wanted to try to distance myself enough from the horror of it, not only my own experience, but those of my wife and my friends and colleagues, for whom I was way too selfishly, suffering in the moment to try to be sympathetic enough to think about what their life was like. So that's what the book turned into, a meditation of my own experience of suffering and sort of chronic illness, and then what it was like for everybody else in my life. And because I wanted it not to just be a depression, misery book that would make people miserable to read, I tried to see how I could fit those honest emotions within a book that was thrilling and that would make you want to know what it felt like, not only to suffer with similar conditions from what I suffered with, but to confront, villains from one's past and to try to get into deep, dark, sexual and violent secrets. And just because we all have these moments of pain or uncertainty, and the degree to which we try to confront them, I think, defines a lot of our lives.
Wow. But we don't all sit down and write novels about them.
That's true. And I think for good reason. I think that the novel definitely started as a selfish way for me to try to come to terms with what my life was and how I was coping for those years. And then from there, I built it out into a larger scene of what these 4 people, dealt with during the character based on me, that life and that experience. And I heard you talking to Gretchen, but before I came on, about that uncertainty of how long this will last. And that rang true, such a parallel to my experience, because I felt like if I had known that, I was going to be dizzy and incapacitated for a week or a month or a year or even 3 years, I would sort of grin and bear it and get through it. But not knowing if this was going to be the rest of my life again added to that existential horror. And I think that uncertainty is what so many of us are dealing with now. The thought that, like, I could be inside for a week, or, I don't mind suspending my life momentarily, but the difference between 1 month and 3 months and 18 months is something that I myself am not psychologically equipped to deal with in the way that I am getting through a tough day or a tough week.
I don't even say 18 months. Like literally my heart I'm like going to start shaking when you say that.
No, I know.
That's why, I don't know, for me, like I have to do this one day at a time, like not in any sort of hokey self-helpy way, but just literally like I have to put my head down and just keep life the way it is today. And like, I can't look too far because it's so terrible. It's so like, it just gives me so much anxiety to look
I totally agree. And not only is that true psychologically, but it's true logistically. Like if you think back to what 2 weeks ago meant, and you know, you would sort of, at least I was like ironically elbow bumping people instead of shaking their hands, because I read that do, to a week ago when we were all starting to panic and see what we would need to purchase or see what our schedules needed to do or what, you know, professional engagements, or for me, book tour events and things like that we would keep, to now where we're fully quarantined. So who knows what 3 days or 3 weeks or 3 hours from now will bring with the next Governor Cuomo news conference, or, you know, a series of informational advice from anybody. So I absolutely agree that not only is it psychologically more sensible, but it's just logistically more plausible to get through these things minute by minute, hour by hour.
On Tuesday this week, I launched this virtual book club I'm doing.
Right.
And at the end, I asked everybody, okay, so when should we have our next meeting? You know, a week, 2 weeks, what do you think? And everyone said, oh, I need a little more time to read the book. How about 2 weeks? So I went and I planned it for 2 weeks. Then I was like, I don't even know what the world is going to be like in 2 weeks. So let's just do it in 1 week, you know?
Right. Absolutely. And I think that's right. The idea of like setting achievable goals, whether that's like pancakes for breakfast tomorrow means I'll tell the kids and they'll get excited about it, or reading a book for a week from now. Life has become such small chunks of time, such small segments.
Yeah, crazy that this is now how we're living. But at least we have your book, The Body Politic, that came out early March 3rd, I think, to get us through. So this was really great. And I really appreciated the different point of view, because I just hadn't really heard a story quite like yours before. I know it wasn't, you know, a novel and not true per se, but
that's exactly right. And so many of the books that I've read, you know, in writing this, I tried to find every character or the cure, you know, and there are so many of us living out there for whom chronic illness is just our way of life, and it's the way we're living now, and it's the way we're going to be living for as long as, you know, we're fighting through this. And the idea of not going into hibernation and not just saying I'm going to start living again when all of this is over, but instead figuring out what life means during these uncertain times. I think not only does it, not as important, it's to talk to people who are suffering with comparable illnesses about these issues, people taking care of them. You know, mourning is something that is comparable, where we feel like we've lost somebody we care about, and then life can only begin once we've gotten over it fully. But we often don't get over it fully. And I feel like the analog to what we're dealing with now as a society is so accidentally perfect, where a lot of us are hibernating and saying, we'll parent better again when this is all over, or we'll eat better again, or we'll find moments of joy or laughter or whatever it is. But I think that instinct to hibernate ends up causing more anxiety in the present, where if we try to get whatever moments of pleasure or laughter or cuddling with kids who have been quarantined before, I don't recommend cuddling with new friends, but with family members and everything else. I think it's important to take the experience of my chronic illness or other people's or their moments of pain as advice to try not to just shut down until it's all over. Because as you say, like, who knows when this is going to end?
My gosh. Well, Brian, thank you so much for sharing your point of view. And I know I'm going to have you on my podcast soon, so I'm looking forward to an expanded conversation.
This was a great moment to say hey in person and to
you too.
To wave before the longer conversation. So thank you so much for doing what you're doing. It gives so many people distraction and advice and things to read. So keep up the great work.
Thank you. I needed that. Thank you, Brian.
Sure. Absolutely. Okay. Speak to you soon.
Thanks. Oh. That was nice. Okay, now, sorry, I'm running a little behind. Rachel Beanland, hold on. I'm sorry, Rachel, but we'll have plenty of time to talk. Hold on. Okay, Rachel Beanland, who wrote Florence Adler Swims Forever, which is coming out in July, so you're getting a way early sneak peek at this book. July. Hey, Rachel.
Hi.
How are you?
Good, good. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on. So I didn't realize until I was reading the fine print about your book afterwards that it was based on your great aunt. This story.
Yeah, great aunt.
Great aunt. So tell people what this book is about, because I know what it's about and I tried to explain it. You'll do a better job.
It's a little tricky to explain. So when my grandmother was a little girl, she was 6 years old. She was on the beach, and her aunt, Florence, who was training to swim in the English Channel at the time, drowned off the shoreline of Atlantic City. And so one of my grandmother's earliest memories was watching the lifeguards at the Atlantic City beach, you know, bring her aunt's body back up onto the shore. And she had, it was an unusual summer for that to have occurred because my aunt was, my grandmother was living with her grandparents for the summer. This is in the real story, it was 1929. I've set the book in 1934. But, you know, back in that day, her mother was pregnant. She was on bed rest. She had lost a baby the summer before. And so it was considered, you know, she needed to be in a hospital. And you wouldn't have left your child with your husband, I guess. I don't know. She was living with her grandparents for the summer. And so when that death occurred, first of all, she was in kind of an unusual situation. She was with her grandparents. And the family made the decision not to tell her mother in the hospital that her sister had just died because she was pregnant and they didn't want to risk her losing the baby. And so my whole life, I had always heard that story. And it was usually told, my mother told the story a lot. My grandmother in her later years would tell it occasionally. Overall, you know, the older generations in the family did not talk about the story much, but the story was always told with this idea that it was just such a noble thing that my great-great-grandmother had done to hide the truth from her daughter in the hospital. And that, you know, she had gone in and pretended everything was fine, and what strength that must have taken. And I did always think it must have taken tremendous strength, but I also can remember, even as a little girl, asking, well, what if she had wanted to know? And so as I, you know, grew older and of course I was writing a lot, when I started to think about what to, you know, that I wanted to write a novel, and that was the first story I wanted to write, was a kind of fictional account of what would have happened over the course of that summer.
And in real life, did your grandmother, did she ever tell the daughter?
Yeah. They told her after the baby had been born.
Okay,
and so
good.
the baby was born, you know, she was born healthy. And they didn't, you know, but she didn't know until afterwards, to the point where, in real life, the baby was, she was not named for Florence, which in the Jewish tradition, as you know, often you would name a baby for someone who had recently died. But she didn't know to do it because she didn't know her sister was dead. So yeah, it's a really sad story. But I kind of never really considered writing it as nonfiction. I always wanted, I thought that secret was kind of a wonderful base, but I imagined a whole family, and was just always really concerned with this idea of, like, when do we keep secrets from other people, and what gives us kind of the right to decide what secret is worth keeping from people, and you know, when is it for other people's benefit? This secret keeping created like a long line of other secrets in my family, where we looked at this example and then said, oh, don't tell our grandparents, you know, about this diagnosis or that diagnosis, or, you know, we definitely, the story has been highly influential in our family over the last 90 years. So.
Wow. I mean, if I had that in my family, I would want to write a novel about it too.
Yeah. It was a joy to write. Because
I was in the car reading this the other day with my husband, and I was like, if I just sat and tried to write novels about every crazy thing that's happened in my family, like I could probably write a few books just on that. It's like everybody's family has these quirks and things. I mean, think about how many people are in each person's extended family line, right? It's like,
yeah, completely. And what always told me that this would be a good story was the fact that there was no like clear-cut answer. Like my mom and I would kind of get into like spars about it, where I'd be like, well, why didn't she tell? And my mom would be like, of course she didn't tell. So when you have these kind of very these family stories where there is no clear answer for what you would have done in that scenario, it feels like the perfect story to fictionalize.
And you have 3 kids, right? Are you keeping any secrets from them right about now?
We try not to. We try not to. But of course, with everything that's going on in the news right now, it's easy to want to keep some of it from them. So.
Yeah. What's your age range of your kids?
We have a recently turned 15-year-old who had a very unusual birthday last week, with just us. He was like, where are we going to dinner? I was like, nowhere. And then we have an 11-year-old and a 6-year-old. So yeah, we're busy.
Yeah.
Yeah. You've got 4, right?
But I have some of those same ages. So anyway, I get what that's like. But
not a lot of writing getting done right now.
I like wonder if your culture of secrecy is going to seep through, don't you wonder, like, is it going to go through?
Well, I kind of think like you'd have to interview my mother to really get to the bottom of it. But I kind of think it's stopped with me a little. Like we did, there have been some things recently that we've kept from my mother, but that's been because we know that that's what she would have wanted, So when my father died about 10 years ago, and he had pancreatic cancer, and when he got sick, the kids, there are 4 of us in my family, and we sat my parents down and said, look, like, you've got to be honest with us. Like, we don't want you to hide things, and then we can't make good decisions about how we spend our time. We want to know what's going on. So we've tried to kind of draw a line in the sand, but
Emily Liebert just commented here and said that her father's Parkinson's was kept from them for 6 years in her family.
Yeah. I've done a couple of book events, like kind of pre-publication, and of course, who knows when the next one will be. But I have noticed there is a trend where at some point in the evening, like, people will find me and they will say, I got to tell you the story about this thing that my family didn't tell anyone for this many years. So I think probably, as we get closer to the book's launch, I will have a lot of those stories in my
I hope that by July 7th we're all out and about and it's like a normal launch for you, but I guess we'll see.
But I mean, I really feel I feel horrible for everyone that's got books coming out right now, and I've been doing my best to support them. In fact, I have a book I want to give a shout out for. I'm in the middle of Sharks in the Time of Saviors right now. And Kauai Strong Washburn. I love it. It's a new book. So if you're looking for something to read, that's a good one.
Thank you. And thank you, by the way, for joning my book club the other day. I hope you come back. It was really
it was
fun to
so
have
fun.
You.
I mean, honestly, that was the perfect book for me at that time. It's another Jewish grandmother. Yeah. It was really, my grandmother died, the one who's based on, Gussie in the book, died a couple of years ago. And in many ways, like, Bess's story just made me feel like my grandmother had walked back into the room. So it was a really, really nice pick.
Oh, good. And that was Bess Cobbs. Nobody will tell you this but me, for anybody who wonders what we're talking about. Well, thanks for coming on, Rachel. And I'm excited to have you on my podcast soon and talk more about your book in depth. And in the meantime, thanks for coming on this.
Oh, yeah. No, thank you so much for having me. And thanks for doing this. This has really been a wonderful thing to look forward to.
Oh, good. Thank you. Okay. Have a great day.
You too.
All these great authors. I know this is like a lot of work to do all these interviews, but I love it. I mean, everybody has such interesting points of view and advice, and I don't know, it's hard for me to stop when I keep hearing such great stuff from everybody. And so now we're going to talk to Courtney Mom. who wrote Touch, who wrote Before and After the Book Deal, who wrote Costa Alegre. Hi, Courtney.
Hi, hello from Mexico.
I was like, I know Courtney is going to be calling from somewhere very far away, but I can't remember where.
Western Mexico. Yeah, I'm in a place called Piraeus, which is where my third book, Costa Alegre, takes place. I'd come here to do promotion for the Spanish edition, and then things fell apart.
Oh my gosh, so you've been stuck there?
Well, I wouldn't say stuck. We elected to stay.
Okay.
So, but starting to feel a little stuck, but yeah.
Yeah, tell me, no, what is it like? What's the whole vibe in Mexico? And
well, I mean, we are in, talk about, isolation. We're on a mountain above this, it's like a savanna, kind of desert savanna that stretches out to the ocean. So first of all, it's beautiful. No one, I'm not asking for any pity at all. We're about 20-minute drive from the nearest house, really in the middle of nowhere, but it's a little, today I'm starting to feel a little, because I'm literally I don't have the book, Costa Alegre, because that book is about a group of artists who are stuck in a house that I can see from this house, even though it's very far away. They're stuck there and they're not allowed to swim in the ocean and they're in exile. And I'm like, I came here to do like press junkets and stuff, and instead I'm in my book. So if I have crazy eyes, it's been about a month now, and I'm starting.
that is insane, especially because having read Costa Alegre, I now have like a mental image of exactly where you are.
Yeah, I'm looking at. The copa that's in the book is in my sight line. I would move the phone so people could see, but we have terrible internet, so I have to just stay very still. But so it's beautiful. It's stunning. We have some animal issues. I'm on like third day of no sleep because we have these chacalacas. They're called chacalacas, and they're these birds that just won't stop talking.
Oh no.
We have some donkey issues and some scorpion issues. So I'm in a weird nucleus of like animal panic a little bit because there's quite a lot of scorpions. We get about one a day in the bedroom, and this
oh my gosh.
As this will come as a shock to no one, right? Not a great time to go to a clinic with a scorpion bite. So everything's great.
This is all going to be excellent material for your next book, though. Right?
I know. My agent was like, I hope you're writing this. Oh, like, send me a babysitter.
Oh my gosh. Well, flashback to like 3 books ago. Go back 3 books ago to Touch and talk about like.
Touch.
I mean, I know you had like a trend forecasting career. Yeah, you like now. Yeah. I'm like, I feel like I should read all your books for what's to come in the future, right?
Yeah, Touch is a great book, I think. Touch is a book about a international trend forecaster, so someone who predicts trends, named Sloan. She's American, but she's been living abroad for many, many years. She's a real, independent career woman, has become more or less estranged from her family. And all of a sudden, she's called back to America to work for I like to call it a turducken of Apple, Google, and Amazon. It's a company called Mammoth. And she's called back to work for them and predict trends in technology. But when she gets there and starts working on this assignment, she starts to feel that the next trends in technology are going to be a movement against technology and a return to in-personism and human contact and intimacy. So it's, if I can use the word fun, it's a fun book for right now because the book opens during a period where people are not touching. They're very much, it's a me-first culture, not a lot of physical contact, not a lot of benevolence or kindness. And then this is not a spoiler alert, but by the end of the book, we're in a different world where people are just hugging strangers and going out of their way to show people kindness through, consensual touch, let's say. So and it's funny, and there's some nice sex scenes. So I certainly think that for people who are at home and starting to feel bonkers or helpless or sad, you probably already feel sad, you know, you might consider reading Touch. I think it's an uplifting read. I'm very biased.
I think it's a great book for, I mean, it was a great book before, but I just feel like it's so timely. It's just, it touches on so many themes that are coursing through all of our heads right now when our touch is sort of, you know, when we can only hug our families, you know,
and I mean, I think it's also, I didn't think of this too much when I was writing it, but now that I think back on that book, I do think that it has a lot to say about our go, go, go culture, which you, of course, maybe better than anyone, know how it becomes addictive, hard to get away from. So for someone like myself, I'm also pretty overproductive. This has been a real challenge. Ultimately, I think it'll be a positive and therapeutic one for me if I don't lose all of my projected income for the rest of my life. I don't know. But, you know, this is a real challenge to just stop and have no control, you know, and you can't like work the way that you used to, especially for someone who has children. We both have children, right? And that's also what Touch is about, is reprioritizing. Right now, I wouldn't say we have a choice, which makes this a really interesting. I mean, I'm trying to use positive adjectives.
That's okay. You can just be real. And by the way, Alyssa Altman, the author, has been commenting throughout about wonderful book and hi and everything.
Alyssa,
so
I miss you. Alyssa's my neighbor and my kind of martini friend back home. Oh, Alyssa, I miss you bad. I don't know when I'm going back, but we will have lots of drinks.
Well, Courtney, I'm so happy that at least we connected for this little bit of time, and you've been doing so much to help other authors, and your newsletter has been amazing. Like,
thank you.
Aggregating all the resources out there, and now that I know the place from which you are doing this, it's even more of a hats off moment to you. So I hope you can stay away from the scorpions and get back.
As do I, Zibby, as do I. We have a mason jar full of alcohol with. That's where we put them all, and it's like getting up to the top. So, yeah,
you can open a natural history museum. It'll be great.
That's what I said to my daughter today. I was like, okay, because I'm going nuts. I need to go for a walk. I said, today we're having like a field trip. I don't want to walk. Children, a topic for another day.
It's like, I don't want to go outside. What? Okay. Anyway.
Thank you so much for having me,
in there.
Everything you're doing, you're still working as hard as you always have with all your children and everything. Thank you so much. As authors, really, really appreciate it. Oh, and for anyone who's stuck at home working on a book, my 4th book, Before and After the Book Deal, very good advice on doing so. It even talks about crisis periods like this.
And Jane Rosen is asking, how do we get the newsletter? How do we get your newsletter?
Oh, great question. Thank you, Jane. Go to courtneymom.com. It's MAUM. And there's a thing on top, and you just press a button.
Right.
Thanks, Sibby. Hang in there.
Courtney, you hang in there. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, I will. Bye.
Bye. Wow. All over the world. Where are we going to go next? Okay, now we're going to talk to Allison Pataki. Hold on. Let me just press add, who has written so many books. I asked her to come on today to read her children's book because I'm trying at the end to do like a little children's section. But hey, how are you?
Hi, good. How are you?
Good. It's so nice to see you.
You too. I'm not as far as Mexico. I'm just an hour north up the Hudson River, but it might as well be another world.
I feel like we're all in our own universes, like having no interaction with anybody else. It's insane.
Yeah.
How are you surviving?
You know, I really can't complain, especially what Courtney was saying. So much of it resonated with just the life that we were living 2 weeks ago has come to a screeching halt in terms of being able to do what we want to do and having our kids be living their lives. And, you know, I have a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old. And so it's very hard to explain why her nursery school is canceled, you know, for the rest of her life, and why we're not letting her leave the house or see her friends, and why we have to FaceTime grandma again. But I can't complain beyond just, you know, the anxiety and the sadness and the stress that everyone is feeling in a collective and in a individual sense. But I will tell you, I am not getting anything done. But how I've sort of made my peace with that is that, you know, as a writer, we have periods of incredible output and periods of incredible input. And since part of what I do is write children's books, I'm looking at this as a period of incredible input. And I'm just trying to embrace the fact that life is now scavenger hunts and, you know, bathtub aquariums. And I'm just trying to really be in that world and be present. And it's hard, but it's also wonderful. And I would say over the course of any given day, probably like how most people are feeling, I totally seesaw between being able to be present and being able to be sort of at peace with the fact that we have no control over this, you know, horrific crisis that's unfolding around us. And then other times where I just spiral into, you know, anxiety for my loved ones and for just the world, and just being so close to New York City. So, you know, day by day, right? We all know that. We know that intellectually, but it's harder sometimes to live it.
Yeah, I agree.
But
I also feel like, just, I want you to read, but like this whole I can't complain type thing, obviously it's like, I know, but we only have our one lives, right? Like we know that there's a bigger world out there and that our problems are insignificant to so many all the time, really. Yeah. And yet this is our life. And so we have to make do with the emotions that it evokes and like not make ourselves feel bad about that, you know?
Of course. And I think also just a huge part of not being in control and just, we don't have control over our life. And I think that that's a very scary thing because your mind, of course, goes to anticipatory scenarios. And so you're just trying to keep your loved ones safe. But, you know, how long reasonably can you just accept a reality of like never leaving your house, you know, with small children and with just everything that you had hoped to do with your days and your life.
Yeah. I miss my life. I mean, this is, you know, I miss it.
Yeah. And you know what? We're all looking for silver linings. And that is a beautiful reality, is that I think when we can get back to a place where we can hug our friends and see our loved ones and get back to the work that we love, hopefully we will appreciate it that much more, and just not feel so much like we're just slaves to the to-do list, but we're actually enjoying the, you know, everything that we're doing on the course of a given day.
There was this funny article by Jason Gay in the Wall Street Journal. He's like one of my favorite columnists. I should really actually introduce myself or something. Anyway, but he had this really funny thing about how usually he hates meetings and he's like always thinks they're such a waste of time, and how now he would like take a meeting any day. Like he would love to just have the privilege of being bored and annoyed in a meeting.
No kidding. I hated going to the grocery store. And now I like would give nothing more than to just go to the grocery store and not be wearing a hazmat suit and terrified, you know, the whole time we're there and just saying not coming back again for another 2 weeks if possible. How are you doing? How are you getting groceries in New York City? I'm
not in New York City. I'm out on Long Island.
Okay.
So I send my husband is he is so nice, but he does all the cooking and all the grocery shopping and comes in and like changes and puts on the gloves and showers and the whole thing. So anyway, just it is what it is. But I want to I know you have a new little sneak peek of Poppy for any kids who happen to be listening, and I'll record this so I can at least you can show kids later and everything. But I'm excited to see. I know your adult books are amazing and you're so accomplished, and it's silly to even like highlight just this one tiny slice of your writing output, but just for today, let's do it.
Absolutely. So all the do you want me to read Nellie, or do you want me to just talk a little bit about it and show Poppy? It's up to you.
Let's show Poppy. Let's start with that.
Okay. All right. So yes. For anyone who has little readers in their house, or anybody who is looking for something to do with the kids, bring them close. I'm sitting on the floor. I'm sitting crisscross applesauce because I want to do this specifically with the kids. And I wish we could do this in person, and we will someday. We'll get back to story times with kids because those are the best story times. But until we can leave our houses and until we can gather in person, books are the best way to do that. And books are the best way to travel and have adventures. So as Zibby said, the first book, which was one of the first times I met Zibby, that I wrote for kids takes place in New York. And so this is dedicated to all of the kids in New York. We love New York City. New York City is the strongest, most amazing, resilient place ever. And so we can go to our favorite spots in New York with this girl named Nellie and her friend Bagel, obviously, because New York bagels are the best. And so this came out last May, but now there's a companion piece, and we get to travel a little bit further than New York, and we get to go to Paris. And if you have little ones with you, or if you have kids, this is a world premiere. We're making news here with Zibby Owens, because I have not shown anybody this yet, but when you write a book, you know, the finished book has a hard cover, and I'm the author with Maria Myers, so we wrote the words, but then the illustrator does all of the beautiful drawings, and then it comes and it's a hard package. But before the book is actually made, when the author has just written the words and the illustrator has just begun to do the beautiful drawings in the finished copy, you get something in the mail called the advanced proof, and it looks like this.
Yay, I love
Here
it.
is Poppy Takes Paris. And it's not a finished book. It's floppy, right? And some of the drawings aren't even done yet in here. Like, they're black and white. These are just street scenes. But you get a sense as the author about what the finished product is going to look like. And you get to sort of get a sneak peek. So there's Poppy. And her dog is Baguette. Because in France, a baguette is one of the best foods you could have. It's a long roll of bread, and they make them fresh every day. So her pal is Baguette, and here's Poppy, and she of course loves ballet. And so Poppy Takes Paris is about a little girl who lives in Paris who goes. Should I read it or
Yeah, read a little.
Okay, so then let's just jump in. Okay, come close, sit with me. We'll pretend we're in person at story time together. Okay, for Poppy Takes Paris. And I'm going to get nice and close for you guys. The sun shines in Poppy's window, warming her face. Ding, dang, dong, the nearby church bells ring. She opens the large doors onto her balcony. Wake up, Baguette. It's another day in the most beautiful city in the world, Paris.
That's a gorgeous illustration.
I love Christy
Love,
Valley.
love, love.
Hi, Maria. I see the co-author is hopped on there with her baguette. On their way to breakfast, Poppy visits Madame Lefleur's flower shop because she has the loveliest flowers in Paris. Then it's off to see Monsieur Le Pen, who takes the most delicious fresh bread out of the oven. And look, of course, Baguette gets his, right? Bonjour, good day, Mademoiselle Poppy, greets the friendly baker. Bonjour, Monsieur, Poppy answers. A croissant for me and a baguette for Baguette, please. What are you two adventurers up to today? The sun sure is shining in the city of light. So Paris is called the city of light, just like New York is called the Big Apple, right? As they wander out onto the road, Poppy has an idea. Baguette, Paris is the city of light, but I bet there has to be one light that shines biggest and brightest of them all. Baguette yelps excitedly. Let's find it, Poppy decides. Let's find the brightest light in the city of light. Baguette wags his tail. He is always up for an adventure. So they're off to find the brightest light. There's only one place to start, the Place d'Étoile, the place of the star, where 12 streets fan out in all directions. At the center is the Arc de Triomphe, the Arch of Triumph, the backdrop of the city's grandest parades. Baguette, let's climb to the top of the Arch of Triumph. Maybe we can find the brightest light in Paris up there. Baguette puffs and puffs as they climb all 284 steps up to the top. Poppy sees the streets extend out like the points of a star, but there are no lights. She says, we're at the top of the star, but I don't see the brightest light. To find what you are looking for, mademoiselle, says an artist who is painting next to them, you must go to the Louvre. Inside that museum, you will find the masterpieces of the best and the brightest. The brightest, you say, merci. That's thank you in French. Poppy picks up a tired baguette and hurries back down the stairs. Poppy skips down the Champs-Élysées, the most famous street in Paris, passing shops, cafes, tourists, and friends. She makes a quick stop to get baguette and macaroon cookie, and one for herself, of course. By the time they finish their treats, they have reached the Tuileries Garden, just outside the Louvre. There they spot the famous fountain with rows of colorful springtime flowers, and of course, the carousel. No time to stop here, Baguette. We need to get inside. The halls of the